Good evening, Minnesota Libertarians, and welcome to another night of Minnesota Liberty. I am one of your co-hosts, TJ Hawthorne, and again with me, as always, is Rebecca Whiting. How you doing tonight, Rebecca?
I'm doing good. You?
Right on. Great.
Wednesday nights I have this routine. I always go get Chinese food right before this happens. So I just had my egg rolls. I'm good.
I was just going to say, I need to figure out a routine because the thing is, when I'm out of town and I'm in a hotel, I got nothing better to do. And it's like, oh, here's the time to do this. And then today I was at home and Wheel of Fortune was just about to start. And it was like, hey, you ready? Like,
do you watch Wheel of Fortune?
Every night that I can. I guess when I'm on the road, I usually miss it. But when I'm home with the wife, we watch it all the time. It's a good watch. So anyways, tonight, let's talk about those wonderful Republican and Democrat Minnesota senators that have been allegedly charged with a few crimes. Charged with
and not small crimes either.
This right. Is well,
crimes.
Yeah, let's get into it, obviously. And we talk a little bit about the violence interrupter situation that's going on in Minneapolis, and definitely want to get into what you know about what's going on with the farm bills, the Minnesota farm bills. That's really important to me, even though I'm living in the cities. I definitely want to track what's going on there for sure.
Yeah, but you like to eat.
Absolutely. That's exactly my point, for sure. Mm-hmm. So, well, let's get into it. So Senator Eichhorn and Senator Mitchell has been a story for well over a year and a half now, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember when that first started, but she broke into her stepmother's home.
Well, they were all elected in 22, so it was after that. Okay. So, but yeah, she's senator from the Woodbury area over here in my neck of the woods. And apparently she allegedly broke into her stepmom's home like a cat burglar, dressed all in black and using a crowbar. Like the crowbar evidence came out just recently in the news, and it was like a big deal. Oh, a crowbar. It's like.
Yeah, but she had that in the beginning, and they were just like, we're just not going to mention the crowbar. Like, I don't know. Okay. I mean.
I guess, everyone takes a little bit differently. To me, it's like you're breaking and entering somebody else's home. That is what it is. Like, you're risking your life when you start doing that, if you know what I mean, if you ask me. But she obviously knew the home she was burglarizing and had a target for what it was. I guess this isn't obvious to me. It's just obvious to the news that I've heard, right? Mm-hmm. What I believe. But there's been quite a calling for her to resign, and they just like nose up and freaking continue on. It's unreal.
Yeah, well, and then the Democrats literally blocked. I can't remember if it was what the Republicans tried to do something early on, because remember there was also a senator that died, right?
That's right. And there was a special election right after this election.
Yeah, and so the Republicans were like, well, the senator that died was a Democrat. And then with Senator Mitchell, if she was no longer in her seat, then they had the majority, at least for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And not the same situation, but there was also a situation going on in the House.
Yep.
At the same time, because a Democrat got caught running for a seat, which he wasn't even he won the seat, wasn't even eligible to run for the seat because he didn't even live in the district.
That's the one rule. That's actually the only one rule to run for voting age and live in the district.
Yeah, that one got sent back to a special election. And because of that, the Republicans had a chance to have the majority in the Senate and in the House, which never happens. And so they were looking at really trying to push Mitchell out of her Senate seat because she was, and the Democrats rallied around her to keep her in it because they needed her to be in that seat and it not to be vacant to keep I think they didn't have the majority, but they had a power sharing agreement or something like that.
They already worked out some agreement, and I guess I haven't paid enough attention about the Senate debacle. Definitely looking forward to looking into it a little bit more. I've been paying more attention to the House stuff because that 40B thing that is near and dear to me. Man, I lost who didn't live in his dang district for 2 years. So
yeah, I mean, this has just been one drama after another since right after Christmas, because when they called the special elections for Senate District, was it 60? Was the lady that died? She was in 60. I can't remember.
I can't remember the number.
But it was in Senate, and so they called a special election for Senate, and then they called a special election for 40B, but they did them illegally. The governor did them illegally. And so there was a lawsuit, and so anyways, I believe 40B, no, that one just had a conclusion.
Yep.
Like literally within the last week or so. And the Democrat won, of course, because heavy Democrat area. And so the Republican ran, but did awful, and did way worse than anyone even anticipated them doing. So Senator Mitchell's seat, because she got caught allegedly, I hate that word. I mean, she got caught red-handed. So it's not allegedly. I mean, it's got to go through like courts and all that kind of stuff. But she got caught red-handed breaking into her stepmother's house because her dad had died and there was some sort of problem, or I don't know, family drama.
There always is. I mean, not always, but a lot. It's
unreal. But she was wearing all black and she had a crowbar. And so she's going through these court hearings. I mean, she's literally going through trial, and quite possibly, I mean, unless the trial, I don't really have faith in the judicial system. Do you?
No. No, because think of so many other circumstances.
Democrat senator, and in Minnesota, that is a lot of weight. And then there's nothing not political about this trial for her. And so the senators, Democrat senators, banded around her and were like, no, don't resign. We need you in this seat, even though you committed a felony. And then stuck by her side through thick and thin, despite her committing a felony. And so she's still in the seat.
And they're kicking the can down the road to even have her trial.
So was the judge. The judge even was like, they petitioned the judge not to proceed with the trial while she was in active legislation, like the legislative session was open. And the judge was like, oh, yeah, sure, that makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. This is somebody who's supposed to be representing the people being upheld to a higher standard of law. That she should have resigned if there was any sort of morality or ethics or anything a part of the but there's not. They're shameless.
Something that just came up in my head about this is, so there's a lot of talk about special session now because the Democrats, because of the 40B thing, and the House Democrats delayed coming in for so long, and really they're going to have to really figure out all kinds of stuff because they're already in this deficit. And they got to figure out the biennial budget, I think, this year and all this stuff. So, and I guess that I'm just working it out and answering my question. The Senate is likely going to have to stay in a special session as well, even though, because you can't pass a bill without both and the governor, you know what I mean? So they're talking a special session. At first I was thinking it's just going to be the House because of that stupid 40B debacle. So for the 44, Senate District 44, the senator and who is Zhang, I don't know his first name, but then Peter Fisher and Leon Lilly are having a town hall this weekend at the North St. Paul City Hall. So I'm definitely going to go chat at them. They set aside 1 hour for 3 of them to come to the City Hall. It seems a little weird, but anyways,
all that is them checking the box to say they mingled with us peasants, and us commoners, and that's really all it is. That they there's anyways. Yeah, and
okay. I didn't mean to get off track there on the whole thing, but
and we do want to remember that this is what caused the House Democrats. It is true. The Democrats boycotted going to the House and sitting in their seats, literally,
and still get paid. Yes,
and still got paid. What was it like? Anyways, it's a lot of money, and did nothing for weeks.
It's something for nothing. It doesn't matter if it's a lot or not.
Right. Well, right, because and the reason they boycotted it is because they lost their power sharing agreement, because the Republicans gained the majority, because their guy cheated. Like, you can't make this up. This is
no,
anyways,
it's and I think now going into this Trump derangement syndrome, and this is what Senator Eichhorn was the one that dang introduced this stupid bill, right? Now, this is the kind of stuff that I think you could throw at these lefties or Democrats, whatever you want to say, for banding together under this stupidity.
Yeah. So just yesterday, Senator Eichhorn, who's now the senator for Grand Rapids area, which is up, well, south of me, but further north than you, got caught, showed up to meet what he thought was a 16-year-old girl.
I heard 17. I don't know if that makes any freaking difference. It doesn't.
Yeah, it was, well, child over the age of 16. So I guess there's only 16 and 17, or really literally the only 2 years. Anyways, under the age of 18, met to have a meet up. And I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube. Like, what do we have to bleep out to not get canceled? Anyways, but met up, and then the whole thing was a setup. But the fact is, and so he was arrested for the child prostitution or something like that. But part of me is like, man, that was. So somebody got online and was like, hey, Senator Eichhorn, we know you're in the, do you want to? And dummy looked at that and was like, oh, yeah, absolutely.
Real dummy. No doubt.
What an idiot. Like, you just legitimate idiot. First of all. Second of all, I don't even know if there is a second of all. I don't have anything. I have absolutely nothing good to say about this.
No, there's really not. It's really, the thing is I am not a fan of this entrapment style method of
oh yeah, for sure.
Exposing these fuckers. Kind of, you know what I'm saying? I'm not. I don't. But that's the thing. I don't have any remorse for these effing people. So if you're going to be a person like that, and it's that kind of a predator, I don't know.
Here's the thing, and like this is what Keith, my husband, and I talked about, because there was a sting in the last couple of years up here in Bemidji, and they caught people in this sting, which there was never any actual children involved, right? But it was just somebody online anonymously being like, hey, we want to meet here. This is what, and pretending they're a kid. And then people show up, and there was never a kid. It was police the whole time, right? And then they get arrested. And so that happened the last couple of years here in Bemidji, and they did in the newspaper, shared all their names publicly of who they arrested. And this is a small town. We looked at that list of names and we're like, holy crap, we know some of those people, And
this has been going on for a long enough time where haven't these idiots realized that people are out there just throwing traps like that? Like,
well, it would be some of the names that they caught were boomers, and maybe they're the ones that are still like, oh sure, you're a Nigerian prince and you're gonna send me, all I have to do is and they're still falling for that in today's day and age.
Sure.
But I just, man.
Well, what WASP Society had said, that most of the time the decoys do not engage first, which would mean that, okay, these predators or these people are looking for this engagement, and yeah, F them. I chop them off. I don't.
Yeah,
I have no remorse for that kind of crap. There's enough adults in the world that have a not as malleable of a mind and emotional everything. Kids, leave the effing kids alone.
Well, and this has just occurred to me. The person, like, on whoever it was with Senator Eichhorn may not even have known he was a senator. it might just have been some anonymous name online. I mean, that makes sense. I don't know how this works because I don't do this.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, hopefully not. I mean, yeah, I'm not hopefully not. Like, I guess if they're really targeting him, then that's a little bit more then it would be more than a decoy. Then it would be a little bit more entrapment stuff. But either way, if the 100% the knowledge that this is a minor, and I don't know, I saw all kinds of different weird shit on the news today, or on, I'm pretty sure I was looking at X on some of the things like the snapshot. No, it was the Channel 4 News. It was Frank that said something pretty freaking weird of what he like repeated a line that I'm pretty sure that's where I heard that. And that really creeped me out. It's like, okay, you're going to go that far? Yeah, I got no remorse for this stupid way that the police are doing it, but still, it needs to stop. And this is fine. Lay out all the drag nets for
the
this.
only question that I have is with, for there to be a crime, there actually, you can't, well,
that's
so
it. That's
for somebody to be convicted, there has to have actually been a crime that committed. And showing up to something that wasn't real, I guess this is for a jury of their peers to decide, but that would be where I would be conflicted, is that, okay, he did something with the intent of doing something gross, but it never actually happened. And so because it didn't actually happen, then how do you convict something on the intent, but there wasn't actually, the
yeah, no, that's a great question. That's a great one for lawyers and judges to decide, right? Where what you're seeing a lot on the internet are not so much it would be vigilante justice, right? Are these guys that are setting these stings up, they're not law enforcement, but maybe they're former law enforcement or whatever, and then they're going to rough these people up or confront them and like maybe hopefully get them to change without any violence. I don't know. I guess I don't like watching it all that much, so I don't pay that much attention to it.
Here's the other thing too, and there are a significant amount of people from our generation, and I think that this is where like the helicopter mom kind of originates, like something happened in family's background that now makes them hypervigilant for their own children. And so then we have, because I don't know, well, the way that I grew up, that, I was raised by boomers, and boomers don't like to talk about these kinds of things. And because they don't like to talk about, and not always, like I'm painting this with a broad brush, but this was my experience, that because they don't like to talk about these kinds of things, there were a lot of kids in my generation who were hurt, right? And so now I think that there's this kind of a shift that's happening to where there's more likely to find these people or call them out, or, so that you have these groups that go around posing to open up a trap to expose,
exposure. Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is the exposure of the idiot, the person, I don't know, the animal, the type of person that is okay with manipulating young minds. The thing is, maybe they don't realize it, and I still don't really feel sorry for them, because they should realize
they should realize it. They're old enough and capable, especially somebody who's an elected official, by the way.
Oh, heck
like,
yeah,
there is absolutely no excuse for engaging in the outward behavior originated from an internal thought. You know what I mean? So like, this isn't something that shocked him. And I don't have the picture to pull up, but if you have go online and Google his mugshot, he knows that he's in trouble. Like, just look at the look on his face. Like, there's no way out of this for him. And there is just such an intense, look at that. Like,
he definitely looks
the realization of what he's about to go through is starting to set in with that picture. You can see it on his face.
Well, and I think you see it a lot when folks know they're busted and they realize they always knew. And whether it's being a pedo or getting busted stealing or whatever, when you are a somewhat of an honest person and definitely know right from wrong, when you were caught. Now you're either fight or flight, or maybe some people do finally man up and say, yes, I did this and I'm wrong, and what are my consequences? And sometimes they get taken behind the woodshed and beat up a little bit or whatever, and hopefully that solves it, but I honestly don't think that does.
Here's the thing though, and this is where I don't feel sorry for him, but I feel sorry for everybody else around him. A, there were a lot of people that trusted him, and B, he's married with 4 kids.
No kidding.
That was part of his, he's a family guy, and he's just, like part of the neighborhood kind of persona that he had when he won this seat, because he used to be my senator. And so before the lines were redrawn, and now he's down in the Grand Rapids area, but he used to be the senator in Bemidji. But now mine is Senator Green and not Eichhorn. But so his family though, and because that reputation of being a pedophile doesn't just stick to him.
Right.
It sticks to everybody else around him too.
Oh man.
And that's the part that there's just so much shame, legitimately so, shame attached to this kind of a label, but he's the one that engaged in this kind of behavior. And that I would say that for anybody to that, if you are struggling with this kind of a thing and go get help before you get caught up into it and something that you can't get out, because this is extraordinarily public. This is all I've seen on politics since this broke the news 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
And I would be really surprised if I were his jailer. I would be very concerned about his health and welfare, because a lot of people that go through something like this never even actually make it to trial.
Yep. I bet. Well, I mean, again, and that's why I feel like just roughing somebody up or doing something like that doesn't actually solve it. There's something in their head that is incorrect. And I used to have the same feeling about other groups of people, and I've realized that I was a wrong type of person. But I think regardless, you can't be messing with kids. Their minds are the malleable ones, and their minds are the different emotions that they don't know are there and what they are yet. It's just evil and incorrect and wrong.
Yeah. So moving on to something else. Is that a good time to adjust? Okay.
Let's talk about that farm bill. I want to.
Yeah, let's do that. That's what's next to my Post-it note. But okay, so in Minnesota, we have a couple of pieces of legislation currently happening that I'm kind of excited about, and because I do politics in my free time. This is like my unintentional hobby, really. Like this is kind of where it's led me. Just here I am, doing this podcast, being part of a party in Minnesota. But this isn't where like my real passion lies. My real passion is in small agriculture and family farms. That is that's actually what got me really more involved in politics, because agriculture laws in Minnesota are extraordinary. And actually, having moved to Minnesota from another state, Minnesota's agriculture laws aren't awful. In some ways. We have in Minnesota, we have a cottage food law, which allows small producers to be able to bake and sell pickles and jellies and jams, salsas, anything that's
preserved,
fermented. Yeah. Well, no, not anything that's can and preserved, because it depends on the pH. But anything that is got a certain pH level, you're allowed to put it into a jar and put it in a water bath and sell it on a shelf without having to use a commercial kitchen. In other states, you can't do that. So there's, having a commercial kitchen is an extraordinary financial hurdle for a small producer. It's just you wouldn't be able to. You're looking at least a $500,000 investment for getting a certified.
Do you know what are the reasons? I can only, and I think I've heard, the only reason I've heard is, well, you don't want the general public to be buying stuff that's going to make them sick, right?
I mean, it's always for your good that they need to take more control.
That's the only, because we see big chains still selling shit that makes you sick, right?
Well, okay, so
I didn't mean to try off track.
No, yeah. So having one of the reasons why, I guess we'll go back to this. One of the reasons why I really love small family farms is because you can literally talk to the person who created the product or grew the product or raised the product or whatever, that you're buying. So there's not, you're not looking at somebody who bought the product wholesale from somebody who paid for the ingredients, from somebody who created the ingredients. And so like there's all these changes of hands when you're buying something off of a grocery store shelf. But when you're buying directly through your local farmer, you know that the amount of hands that it goes to is only between you and your farmer.
That's a wonderful point.
You can ask them, hey, did you use such and such ingredients? And a local farmer is going to be way more likely to reject, those ingredients that I would say that are poisonous or detrimental. I mean, there's a lot of things in our food, high fructose corn syrup, GMOs. My family avoids GMO products. That's genetically modified ingredients. And genetically modified ingredients are ingredients that literally they've created them in a lab and done something that even hybridization in nature could never mimic.
Okay, that's a great, because I always thought like I was told that the corn that is all over America is all GMO. It's all genetically modified.
The only way to get non-genetically modified corn in the United States is to buy organic. The rest of it is, or like your corn seed, and you can get non-GMO, but the corn that you get from fields is almost exclusively GMO at this point.
So it has to. So you're saying that to me, I feel like genetically modified, it's already done if you have the seed. You know what I mean?
No. So in a genetically modified product seed, they're literally taking like fish DNA and corn DNA and combining them together and creating new corn seed. Like I said, something that could never happen in nature.
So that the pests don't eat the soybeans. Like I've driven down the roads and see the soybean fields and they're luscious green and they're untouched.
And that's the thing is that, and I can't without like, there's a lot more to it than this. I'm giving you the very simplified version. But the reason is because you can produce a higher yield product. Corn is a very low yield. So you only get a certain amount of corn per square foot, and it's very low in regards to you. So you can, like tomatoes, for instance, you can grow a whole lot more tomatoes in a square foot of garden soil than you can grow corn. Okay.
Sure.
So the point when they started creating genetically modified ingredient or seed, it was to increase the yield and also decrease like the need for weeding or pesticide or bugs, because growing organic or growing naturally is a lot more hands-on, because you have bugs that'll get into your seeds or your whatever it is that you're growing, or there's bacteria in the soil that can also cause. So like there's all these things that can cause a seed once it's planted to not actually grow into a healthy vegetable or, fruit or whatever. So there's all these things. So genetically modified tried to make seed that kind of circumvented the challenges of growing something successfully. So now you can spray corn fields down with pesticides and it kills the bugs, but it doesn't kill your corn. So the corn lives through it, but the bugs don't. or you can spray it down with herbicides, and it kills the weeds in the dirt, but it doesn't kill your corn. So, there's all these things. That's why they started
So
using.
all that stuff is getting soaked up into the
Yeah. So that's the
genetics
problem, right? And I think that's why we're seeing an increase in these chronic illnesses and cancers and all of these kinds of things, because the pesticide use, the over pesticide use, the over herbicide, fungicides, all of these things that you spray on crops, because your crops can now live through being sprayed, whereas before they couldn't.
Yeah.
Now that's in the soil, it's in the water, it's in everything. So even when you are buying something from the grocery store that has an organic label, that organic label is still allowed to have a certain amount of pesticides and herbicides in their final product and still be considered organic. You're not getting something that's actually pesticide free. So you need to be like, just
Where do
be
you think that came from? Lobbyists and whatnot? Or, me, honestly, like, who is the arbiter of that label? Is that
so in the 1970s, I'm not sure when the organic label, somebody in the comments, Google that really quick. When did the organic label get taken over by the US government? Because as soon as it did, the standards for organic actually started dropping. So the benefit of talking to your local farmer is that your local farmer, while not like probably not, because it takes a lot of money to stay organically certified for US government standards, because there's all these paperwork, there's so much paperwork. It's like hundreds of dollars to maintain this label. And then there's like all these record keeping and all this kind of stuff. It's an extraordinary thing to be able to be at a certified organic, right? But then you're even when you're certified organic, you're still allowed to have a certain amount of pesticides in your produce or your vegetables, your soil, or whatever it is, and so that's why talking to your local farmer is really the best thing that you could do, because when you're talking to somebody that actually grew the food, they can tell you exactly what they did and how they did it. And oftentimes they're not certified organic, but their organic practices are even to a greater degree than a commercial farm could be who is labeled organic. Because when you have a small farmer that's just producing, like they have an acre of vegetables that they're growing for their local farmers market, they're literally going through and hand, tilling or, hoeing out the weeds by hand. They're not using big equipment. They're doing everything, very.
But they're just not paying for that dumb label. They don't need to, because they can still have folks buy their product because they know who they're getting it from, right? Is that what you're like? These folks don't need to pay for the organic label, and they're being organic regardless.
Yeah, and so we can't say, because now, since the government has taken over the organic label, you can't, as a farmer, you can't be like, oh, this is organic, because you're not certified. But you can say, I grew this with natural methods or something like that, So, 1990 WASP Society said 1990 passage Organic Food Production Act. So that would have been it. So not the 70s, it was a little off, but that was when the government took it over, the standards for organic started dropping.
Well, that was, I wonder when that food pyramid too. Keith Knight likes to talk about the food pyramid and how pissed he is about the propaganda that we were sold for so long of
low fat foods that are
all the high carbs. Like the whole bottom of the pyramid was grains. And we're supposed to have like 11 to 15 servings or something of carbs all day or every day.
Yeah. And here's the thing is that American wheat is not GMO. Yet. It's not GMO yet. That GMO is a lot of times corn, soybeans, alfalfa. There's certain things that are it really started with corn and soybeans, which is the big thing.
And soy is in just about everything.
Yes. So I'm trying to remember, keep my thoughts going in the right direction here. But wheat is not GMO. The problem with wheat is that wheat has been hybridized a lot faster than human body can keep up with. So the gluten strains so you can take, seed and pollen from a seed and then, put it together, and you've essentially hybridized your your, whatever it is you're growing, which can happen naturally in the wild. Okay, so that can. But there are people that would take like, oh, I like this wheat and I like this wheat, and I'm going to put those together and, pollinate it. And now I've created, through a process of which could happen in the nature, but hybridized corn, or hybridized wheat. Now, wheat doesn't grow, the wheat in the United States grows very short and dense. If you look at wheat fields in, say, Europe, where they have they've been better at maintaining their ancient strains of
Sure.
wheat.
A lot of folks talk about that with their gluten disorders and stuff going to Europe. Yeah.
It's because gluten strains, the DNA of gluten, the current strains that we have, that we use predominantly in the United States, our bodies cannot digest that as well as these really old strains of wheat that we almost have no access to in the United States anymore. So when you're looking at people who have like these chronic illnesses or they're gluten intolerant, a lot of that is why, because it's not the wheat necessarily as it is the gluten strains within the wheat that have changed, but through that hybridization. But this was not something that was done in a laboratory, and that's why it's different from corn and soy.
I wonder that why. I think this is really becoming some really common knowledge, right? I mean, I definitely gluten-free is all over the place. It's quite the fad, you know what I mean? But it's probably very true that people have this disorder that, you know what I'm saying? I totally understand what you're saying. It makes sense. So don't you think that would open the market for, hey, let's buy some seed from the European wheat farmers and make it start growing here?
So there are some people that have started doing that, and I get, because one of the things I do for our local farmers market is I bake. I do a lot of sourdoughs. The fermentation process breaks down the gluten strains. Or did you see the comment?
I'm just reading that now. I don't know where that came from. We don't need to show it.
Yeah. Okay. Have a nice life, guy. Anyways, so the gluten strains through fermentation of sourdough and things like that can make it more digestible. And I've noticed, like for my family, that we have, because I make sourdough, and because I make sourdough and we eat a lot of it, I can't really eat normal, like, bread off the shelf anymore. And I don't know if it's just because like having adjusted, but I feel sick afterwards if I eat this, right? And really for my family, that was why we started going down this path of, looking to be able to produce more things for ourselves, because we were looking for a certain amount of product that we couldn't find at the stores. And for us, that started with milk. Milk is in the United States, it's homogenized, it's pasteurized.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get the natural cream top of milk like you would from your literal cow. And the Holstein cow, which is used predominantly for commercial dairy farms, was created specifically through hybridization. It's not the Holstein isn't, it was two cows came together and made a Holstein, and now they have a whole bunch of Holstein cows. And I can't remember which two cows those are. So maybe somebody in the comments can Google that too. But anyways, a Holstein cow is different than from like a Jersey or some of the older breeds of cow, because the casein in the lactose is different. Jersey cows or like brown Swiss cows, which are a very old breed of cows, have an A2, and I can't remember what the strain, it's called A2 though, basically. It's A2 milk. And for the most part, Holsteins are A1, and the milk is less digestible. So you have a lot of people that are now looking for A2 milk, which is very hard to find. The alternative for A2 milk is goat milk. Goat milk is more digestible because it's naturally homogenized, and the homogenation process of milk, because cow's milk is not naturally homogenized, that's why the cream separates, and in goat's milk it doesn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you're not going to be able to like skim the cream off the top of goat's milk, not very well. To answer the question in the comment, they switched to Holsteins because Holsteins are a very high producing cow. And so you can easily get I know off our Jersey cows, I can get up to 8 gallons of milk a day from one Jersey, but you're looking at 10, 12 gallons of milk per day from a Holstein or more. And so that's an extraordinary amount of milk, and that's why they're used commercially, because they're higher producing milk.
I think you told me this once before too. Is that once they have a calf, you just keep milking them? Will they just keep producing milk?
Yeah, and it's just like, women, we have babies.
Yeah, 48 months old, like grown ups. My 48-month-old still. Let's have anyways.
Well, it's not quite like that with cows, but like for goat and cows, you have a 10-month milk cycle. So every year it takes them 10 months to have a baby. That's their gestation. It's like 280 days, something like that. And then for 10 months they milk, and then you dry them off for the last 2 months so that they can kind of get their body condition back, because milking, they need a lot of calories while in milk. And some cows can literally milk their weight off. So you give them that 2 months of dry period. It helps them get dry, and then it helps their bodies to also be able to make colostrum in preparation for having the next calf. And the colostrum is necessary for the next calf to get it up on its off to a good start. Anyways, said all that. That's why we started into this foods, with agriculture and that kind of thing, because we couldn't. My kids were all having milk problems, the wheat problems. Like, this was just, and this isn't, it's not just our family. There's a lot of families that are like this. So the really made me start to question the food industry and look at all the ingredients and start rejecting almost everything that you could buy at the grocery store. I almost don't buy anything out of a box.
Right. Yeah. It's harder in the cities, and I don't live on a farm, but I definitely going for that.
Yeah, but you can't, because you can't find good milk and you can't find good bread. That made me start to look for dairy animals that I could milk myself. And it made me start baking our own bread that, we could avoid those, ingredients that were so predominant from the shelves. However, once you start doing all these things for yourself, you realize just how controlled of a industry that agriculture is through the government and regulations and laws and that kind of stuff. They really go out of their way to overly regulate every single aspect of agriculture. And so we moved here from South Carolina, which is a red state, by the way, but in South Carolina, you weren't even allowed to bake bread and sell it legally, because the only bread that was allowed to be baked had to be baked in a commercial kitchen.
Well, red state to me and to us doesn't mean any kind of liberty. I'll tell you that.
No, I mean, we're not red or blue, so we're just not. So anyways, came here to Minnesota, and we moved here because this is where my husband is from, and that's how I ended up here. And the baking laws, it's called the cottage food laws. The cottage food laws say that you can bake as long as you're not doing so commercially, which is like, as long as you're not making more than $78,000 a year, you're not considered commercial. And so I can bake and sell it at a farmer's market without doing it in a commercial kitchen. I can do it in a home kitchen. But you can do that with pickles, jams, salsas, anything with that you can do in a water bath. Canning.
There's a local woman doing that in Oakdale, actually, in my district. I just found her. Sourdough I wish I remember now, dang it, but she's totally making the sourdough and selling it right off the Facebook page.
Yeah, and you're allowed to do that in Minnesota, according to the laws. Which, I mean, if it was up to me, I'd be like, why are we even regulating this? They should people just be able to, but the problem is that big agriculture, the big corporate the corporations that run predominantly the big farms, like think Tyson Chicken and anyways, all these big, they produce a lot. They have thousands of acres. They have multiple farms in their contract. Okay. They're the ones that are really, they have the money to lobby the legislation, the politics, to be able to put things in their favor. And the result at this point in time, over the course of the last decades, has been to regulate the small farm out of existence. And so that's where I come in. I said that all.
No, I like this commenter. He's really been lighting it up. He or she, I guess. I don't know that. I think that's a picture of Kim Sung Un or whatever. Um,
Yes, I like to pickle things. I'm asking.
yeah, I was gonna ask you to answer that question there. The pickling and that's actually maybe a little tangent there too. About how what's your favorite method of preservation? Because
Well, I don't have a favorite. I like to employ a lot of different types of things. I don't like to freeze things. I don't like to rely on electricity.
energy. Yeah, I would go there as well. That's kind of where I was thinking too. Where my wife was thinking we're gonna really get into growing a bunch of stuff this summer, and I want to preserve a lot. So the freezer was good, deep freeze, like, and then when that goes out, where you got all this product going to waste, I am not into that at one bit.
So I would start with like a pressure canner, and Presto makes a good pressure canner. When I started buying them, they were only $30. I think last time I looked at one, it was $150. They've gone up in cost so much, and just
the demand, because people are catching on. This is a really good thing to do for your family.
And remember what was it? The Boston Marathon that got bombed. They used a pressure canner. Was that what?
Oh, sure.
Anyways, so I like pressure canning. I like water bath canning. And that's, you don't have to like tighten it down and pressurize it. It's just because of the pH in it. And this is for things that are high sugar content or like vinegar based. Things like pickles are vinegar based. You only have to do a water bath canning, and it's much more simple. So anything that you can go that route, but that really, it kind of limits you. So you wouldn't be able to water bath can like green beans or carrots, because the pH on that is not such that you could just water bath can it. Typically, not in a safer. It's safer to do it through a pressure canning. But I also like to dehydrate, and you can get a dehydrator, and then put things on a tray. It does take a lot of time to dehydrate something properly. And you can dehydrate almost anything from like herbs to peppers. I like to dehydrate peppers.
Eggs. I've seen eggs and just making like an egg powder.
Yeah, I've never done that, but I guess you could. I know that you can do a lime bath and put eggs, and they literally just you like put them in lime and water in a jar, and there's a recipe. Google it. But so those would be the way. Anyways. Back to the legislation, because I could talk about this all day.
I dig it. I think we have some Twitch watchers that are not capitalists. It seems weird that you come onto this, but there are some great mixture of ideas, maybe of our anarchism or anarchy beliefs. But
I think that, I mean, this guy is not a capitalist. I'm not opposed to capitalism. I don't think that what we have in the United States is capitalism.
Right.
If it was, there wouldn't be so many restrictions and regulations restricting what I can do to be able to produce for myself and make some money. That's not capitalism. That's corporatism. And corporatism is the beginning of fascism. Fascism is the beginning of Marxism. So that's that slippery slope. If you want to go the other direction and not restrict what I want to do for my own business and my own family and be able to provide for myself, that's capitalism. But that is not what we have today.
Nailed it, girl. And I think I'd like to just bring that conversation in with some of these folks, because I think maybe maybe a lot of our watchers and listeners are on the Twitch, and maybe they have a different point of view when it comes to the capitalism and free market and what that truly means, and what so many folks believe what it means, and they're ignorant. I mean, you and I have talked about this. We had a whole episode before about the crony capitalism and what they think, what the government really is, and you really nail it when it comes to farming. This is a huge one, and it concerns all of our health. Even me living in the cities, I'm impacted by farming bills and stuff like that when they're these mass farms and things like that, where, gosh, if there were just more local farms, we'd all be healthier, I believe.
Yeah, well, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, is that for farms that are doing like cash crops, or they have fields of whatever it is they're planting, oftentimes they are they're told they're only allowed to sell this amount of whatever it is they've planted, and that's it. And that's by government regulation. And so government has decided that they're only going to accept a certain amount of, I don't know, sugar beets for a season. Okay. And then that's it. And if you don't get your sugar beets in before they've met their, their threshold, then you're just out of luck. Those are going to go literally rot in your field because the government caps how much farmers are allowed to sell. And it's not like they're capping this farm and then they're capping this farm. They're capping the industry as a whole. And if you don't get in on before that cap is met, you're just out of luck. They don't care that you planted your fields with whatever it is. You're not allowed to sell it, period. And so that's not, when the government is in charge of telling you what you're allowed to plant and how much you're allowed to sell, that is not capitalism. So anyway, back to my laws. Okay. I have been working the last couple of years on really advocating for raw milk laws and cottage food industry kinds of things, because I'm on the board for our farmers market. This is really where like like I said, my passion lies is like the family farm and producing, the acres of vegetables, fresh out of the field directly to the farmer's market, something that you can have that just tastes way more amazing than you're ever going to be able to buy at Walmart. But that the industry and the regulations have regulated dairy farming out of business because the laws are just so challenging to get around. And I looked a couple of years ago into establishing a micro dairy in Minnesota. To be able to establish a micro dairy in Minnesota, I was looking at because I would also need a commercial kitchen. I was looking at a $500,000 investment for being able to take milk and yogurt to a farmer's market. So I was like, well, I'm never going to be able to do that. And so I started looking into the raw milk laws and changing those in Minnesota instead. Right now, you can sell raw milk in Minnesota legally. However, I can't tell you that I have raw milk for sale as a farmer. Even though I have dairy animals, I can't be like, hey, TJ, I have raw milk for sale. Would you like to buy some?
Not even word of mouth?
No, that's illegal. I can't tell you.
I got to stumble upon it?
You have to come and ask me.
What can I tell everybody, though?
You could tell everybody, but I can't tell people that I have raw milk for sale. The law specifically says that we are not allowed to advertise that we have raw milk for sale. I can sell it to you, but I can't tell you that I have it. Okay. So it really is relying on the word of mouth. What the laws that I'm looking to change are in Minnesota would mimic a law that's already on the books in Idaho, which essentially has legalized raw milk and anything raw milk can be created into. Think ice cream, cheese, yogurt, sour cream, any of these things. And then be able to take it to a farmer's market and sell it. The way the current law is written is that you have to come to me and then you have to leave the farm with the milk. I can't leave the farm and bring the milk to you. That is also illegal. So that limits me from being able to take any sort of milk to a farmer's market to be able to sell it. And that's one of the things that I'm looking
to. Like, what if I went to you and bought all these milk jugs and then went to the farmer's market and sold it?
No, also illegal.
Okay.
Can't sell milk. So then the other law would be to change the cottage food laws a little bit, which are actually, I appreciate the cottage food laws in that we can sell bread and pickles and jellies and things like that at the farmer's market. And you can sell up to $78,000 worth of. I feel
like that's a little carrot. It's a little carrot in front of you. Like, here you go. You can do this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least it's not nothing, right? So, which in some states, you're not even allowed to do that. However, there are some things that are really dumb about it. I can bake an apple pie and I can sell it to you. I can bake sourdough and I can sell it to you. I can bake bagels, muffins. I can bake banana muffins and sell them to you. I cannot bake banana bread and sell it to you.
Why?
I can't bake pumpkin pie and sell it to you.
Is it just the name of those things, or is there ingredient specific rules and reasons why?
They claim that it's because the moisture content within that product is too high and therefore the product is less shelf stable. And so, I mean, if you leave a pumpkin pie out in the counter for 4 days, yeah, you're probably gonna come back and there's gonna be a little mold on it. I don't know what kind of an idiot would leave a pumpkin pie sitting on their counter, and there are really good ways to, like, take care of that. Just, slap a label on this, needs to be refrigerated when you get home. Yeah, I mean, it's just
So this brings me all the way back to one of the beginning first things when we started this show. And I remember we had a special guest. Maybe I won't name her name, but she runs a hemp store in Twin Cities,
yeah,
and
used to.
she used to. And the thing is with these laws and this stuff, is there like a state police force that's going to come out wearing overalls and arrest you doing this, or you know what I mean? Like, how many of these cops really want to, or sheriffs or whoever really want to enforce that crap?
Yeah, so this is what happens is that the Department of Agriculture has a hotline that you can call in and be like, so and so is doing this and they're not allowed to do this.
The old
And
Walsey hotline type shit. Yeah.
There almost everybody I know that does this kind of thing has been turned at least once. And it's usually because they're not doing anything wrong. Oftentimes what you see is that when you're being successful at what you're doing, that it makes sometimes people jealous and mad around you.
Oh
They're
gosh.
like, oh, this person, instead of coming to you and talking about it, they just go turn you into the hotline.
That's
so
Minnesota passive aggressiveness for sure, and that's the word.
I mean, I've gotten a phone call from the state being like, "Hey, we heard this about you," and what it ended up being is that I have a crazy neighbor that just is always looking for something to do to harass us, or me specifically. And that's what happened. He called the hotline and was like, "Hey, they're not allowed to this, and this." And I mean, I wasn't doing anything illegal, but that's how he used the hotline. So what the state does is that they call you up and they talk to you. And then the guy that I talked to, he sounded really uncomfortable having to even address it. And I just sent him pictures of my labels, like, hey, this is what I do. It's all like I have a farm page, it's all on Facebook. And he was able to look through things and be like, yep, you're not doing anything illegal. And he could see where I was registered with the state. I have a registration to sell cottage food products. And I was good to go. But there are some people that it really depends on who takes up your case as to how far they're willing to go to harass you.
It's like any crime. Yeah, isn't that crazy? That's the judicial system there.
Yeah. I want to address this comment really quick. So it's almost like the state is trying to uphold a monopoly or something. Yeah, and that would be exactly my argument, is why we shouldn't give them more power to control and regulate more of us. We should take back that regulation. Giving the people who are already going to use that to hurt people, we shouldn't give them more power. We should give them less.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, I wanted to also mention on the topic of food, the North St. Paul Food Shelf. I volunteer at the food shelf quite a bit whenever I'm home, and they just had this. Well, it turned into a North St. Paul Food Shelf fundraiser, but North St. Paul, the community, one of my neighbors, she lives right behind me in the alley. She has these skeletons up in her yard. Puts them up in Halloween, but then leaves them up until the summer. Mm-hmm. So they're up for most of the year and through the winter time, and decorates them for Christmas. And they got leprechaun stuff on there right now. They actually were on the news, Fox 9 News last night and earlier today, and CCO News on Sunday. So anyways, they were on the news because a neighbor, some Karen neighbor, mailed her a non-return address envelope with a letter with notebook paper ripped out and then written really angrily, "Take the skeletons down. We're going to tell the city, and there's ordinances." And then all of a sudden that she shared it to the North St. Paul Facebook page, and it had like 800 comments in just a few days. And the whole, there's all kinds of skeletons all over everybody's yard now. And it's just this whole solidarity movement. And then what I really dug was that it turned into a North St. Paul food shelf fundraiser, and they raised $2,000 in just 2 days. So that was cool, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Rachel and Ariana for the cool stuff that they just did for the food shelf. Thank you.
Yeah. Speaking of food shelves, I mean, that's a perfect example of voluntary group of people, you know, coming together as a community and helping provide a charity to people that need it, you know. So
Yep. Yeah, and you know what though? I mean, and we pick up Whole Foods donates 5 days a week, Hy-Vee donates 6 days a week, and Cub Foods and Nolan's and all kinds of great Starbucks. Target's a huge one, North St. Paul and Oakdale Target. So we intake, and I do the driving, or I do one of the routes whenever I'm available. I'll go and we pick up, you know, thousands of pounds of food every single day. And then all these volunteers go in and organize everything. And it's quite the store that's going on in there. So if anybody really needs help, make an appointment at SPAA Food Shelf. That's about all I got, though.
Last topic, though, the violence interrupter.
Oh, you want to get into that after an hour?
We have a few minutes left, and we did say we were going to talk about it.
Yes, because it is actually something.
Stale news.
Huh?
Next week it would be stale news.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to I'm going to share my screen right now because this is part of the story that really got out to me, and 65 shots were detected between. So the officers responded to the area of 36 and Penn after shot spotter. So the shot spotter, you know what those are, Rebecca?
Yeah.
Okay. And so they're these, I don't know, camera detect or microphones that can tell when shots are happening, and then they just show up on a thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure. So anyways, that many shots in 2 minutes. The 65 shots between 9:36 and 9:38, and then the one dude is apparently the only guy that got hit, and he was the violence interrupter. I don't know. That's what I got from this.
He was being shot at by stormtroopers.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we were chatting about, like the whole. That's pew. This whole violence interrupter thing, and it's something that the Minneapolis City Council tried to or has implemented, but I think after this incident, so the dude shot back. That's the other part. That's the other part of the story that I did catch on the
violence interrupter shot back.
Yes, he was carrying. So now he got shot, and now he's actually being arrested, or he's been arrested for shooting his firearm in the city and possessing a firearm because he's not supposed to have one. But he's not supposed to have a firearm, but he's been anointed as one of these violence interrupters.
He should have gone into a different line of work.
Yeah.
That just sounds like setting somebody up for complete failure.
Absolutely. And hey, but this is what it was. They're trying to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, I think, when they're violence, gun violence. Oh, there was another thing I saw on the news today that there was the gun violence. There's a course at the U of M that literally is gun violence law. And I'm not kidding you, in the 2-minute segment, they said gun violence 30, 40 times. It was like the shot spotter. It went off in my head when they just kept saying this dang phrase. And it's like, wow. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that what I'm watching is the propaganda of the day anyways, but
what the news is a tool of the state, and they're going to manipulate it to fit their what they're trying to.
The other part that really gets me are the people that talk like this and say, I know someone who's a victim of gun violence and I want to stop it now. Like that up talk crap. Oh. Anyways, the violence interrupters, I think that's all done. It was a thing. I know that I would hear him talking on Twin Cities News Talk about it. I don't live in Minneapolis, and I have not seen any other news about this stuff until this happened. And then this happened, and looks like the contracts are done. So who knows? I think the money grab is done, because I think that's really all it was a neighborhood. Hey, we'll do this. You say you're going to take care of the community. And some of these guys really felt like they were empowered to do so. And maybe some of them did do a good thing. You know what I mean? Like just being a man in the neighborhood is sometimes it's all is necessary. And I'm not, I'm not a feminist, but I'm also not misogynistic at all. But I do believe that men are important to be in the family unit, and I'm sure you agree with me that it is important, but taking the men out of it
I
is
would say that the family unit is the most important foundation to a healthy society. A healthy family, a healthy society mirrors their healthy families. So if a society is going through a lot of violence, or I mean, a lot of that originates out of broken families. So the best thing you can do to help a society be better is to uphold the family unit and help the families be healthy. And I think the best way to help, maintain a healthy family, not just through like morality and ethics, but by giving people a way to be able to, freely support themselves and their own independence through
Mhm.
capitalism.
Got it. Yes, no doubt. Well, I think Lisa asked, "What is a violence interrupter?" We kind of talked about it, but it's something that the Minneapolis City Council put together a couple years ago to try and curb the police violence, right? Because all these folks were getting shot by the cops, which I still don't believe was really the case. It just gets blown up by the media and the propaganda. Don't get me wrong, cops are bad. Also, the bad cops need to be dealt with. That's for sure.
Well, I think this is what we talked about last week, was that like the Metro Gang Strike Force, they had a
Yes.
reputation for being awful in the metro area. So you do have a long history of crooked cops in the cities and down in the metro. And that's, they're I don't think that's fixed.
No, I agree, and it's maybe it's a wavy problem because I know there were pockets in the '90s that you definitely did not, you weren't about to go around, and some of that gentrification or whatever the hell you want to call it. I don't know. I don't live in that deep of the urban area to know how good or bad these, dumping some money in this area, and I don't know. I'm not a fan of just scooting people out, but if it's somebody else's private property, they need to get out of there. You know what I mean? That stuff definitely has to be enforced. All right. Well, I think we should wrap it up. We're gone over an hour.
Boom, done. All right. Well, if anybody's interested in joining the Libertarian Party in Minnesota, we are not the right or the left. We're kind of like this happy conglomerate, the Big Tent. We just don't want people telling us what to do and how to live our lives. And so if you're interested in joining us as a political movement and getting involved in the political party that would mirror the independent nature of a wild soul, I guess, Libertarian Party of Minnesota, lpmn.org, place membership, donate to the party, keep up with events. We have affiliates that meet all over the state. We're looking to make more affiliates. So if you're like, oh, we don't have a group here in my local area, get in touch, info@lpmn.org. And we can help you with that. So we would love to have libertarian affiliates everywhere and create a strong network. Because, and I don't know how you feel. Well, I kind of know, but maybe I'm just opening this up so that you can say it out loud. But I feel like there's a political shift happening.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that, we talked about earlier, like, I don't think that people can just look at the Republicans or the Democrats and think, oh yeah, this is a long-term viable solution. This is, where it's at. It's got to be something different.
There
And
does.
we're different.
We are, and we're different, and we're similar enough to be not what's the radioactive or whatever people think we are. You know what I mean? Where I saw a comment earlier about anarchists or idiots. I'm not going to lie. It's like,
well, that was the same Marxist guy that was.
Yeah, to me, that's ignorance, and that's just like, saying racial slurs to somebody, whatever. It's not the same, but it's just it's that ignorance of not knowing, not understanding the other person.
Mhm.
And That's fine. Hey, man,
Knows
you do
enough to
you.
comment, but not doesn't know enough to try and have a conversation to
Yeah,
understand.
and as much as we comment on our opinions or whatever, I'm absolutely open to learning the truth of something that I'm ignorant on as well. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing, kind of what we are talking about in the beginning of someone's feelings and things like that. Like I don't understand it. What I do know is this is wrong, whatever, right? But anyways,
Yeah, well, regardless of the situation, what it is, I haven't seen a scenario yet that leads me to believe, oh yeah, we should give the solution to this is to give the government more power.
not once.
None. So the solution to being able to fix this isn't to give the people who created the problem more control, because they have no incentive whatsoever to fix a problem they created. And so that's where we come in. We are trying to be part of a movement that is something different, that helps originate back to pure principles and pure ideology that really puts the individual and the person at the first and foremost. Whether that's through no matter what their class is or their financial status or their color of their skin, like that people are equally and individually amazing. And as such, we need to give them and uphold their rights to be able to live their own life freely without the restriction of the state. That's the Libertarian Party in a nutshell. lpmn.org. Go there to
Perfect.
join, be part, membership, find our events. And oh yeah, one last thing: Defend the Guard rally, April 5th in St. Paul at the Rotunda. Apparently there's going to be another kind of an event there that day, but we are on the calendar. I have confirmed that.
Okay.
So that's we had to ask permission to have a rally that helps support some of our non-interventionist ideals and principles, and to help promote peace across the world.
Yeah, Rebecca and I will both be speaking along with a few other folks to talk about that, which reminds me, I'm actually going. I'm leaving for Japan on Monday until April 4th, so I won't be back until the day before. So I won't be on.
Better not miss your plane then.
I won't. I'm gonna do whatever I can to come home a little early, but I have a day cushion as well, but I won't be on the show. I won't be, because I'm gonna be on the other side of the earth.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll find a new co-host.
All
I'm
right.
taking applications for anybody that's watching, unless you're Marxist. Just keep your application.